And so, the story of Judith did not end. It merely began anew, carried forth by those who walked the path of faith, strength, and unyielding resolve. Many years after Judith's passing, the world once again found itself on the brink of darkness. The peace she had fought so hard to establish was threatened by new enemies. Foreign invaders who sought to claim the lands of Israel, and corrupt leaders who turned their backs on the teachings of faith and justice. The people of Bethulia, once a beacon of strength, now faced uncertainty and despair. But among them was a young woman named Miriam, a descendant of Judith's line. Raised on the tales of her ancestors' bravery, she carried within her the same unbreakable spirit. Though she was no warrior, her wisdom and faith made her a leader among her people. When the oppressors came, she did not cower in fear. She sought a way to unite the scattered tribes and restore the will of the people. One fateful night, Miriam received a vision, just as Judith had before her. In her dream, she saw a great fire consuming the land, but from its ashes, a new hope arose. The message was clear. The people of Israel could not remain divided, or they would fall. Inspired, Miriam set out on a journey to rally the scattered leaders and rekindle the strength of their ancestors. Her travels took her through perilous lands, where danger lurked at every turn. Along the way, she encountered those who had lost faith, warriors who had abandoned their cause, elders who had resigned to defeat, and families who feared the coming war. But Miriam spoke with conviction, reminding them of Judith's triumph and the power of unity. One by one, they took up arms, not for conquest, but for the survival of their people. As the enemy forces advanced, Miriam led the resistance with strategic brilliance. She used her knowledge of the land to set traps, her words to inspire courage, and her faith to remind her people that they were not alone in their fight. Just as Judith had once done, she stood at the heart of the battle, unyielding in the face of overwhelming odds. Then, on the eve of what seemed to be an inevitable defeat, a miracle occurred. A great storm swept across the land, shrouding the battlefield in darkness. The invaders, believing the heavens had turned against them, faltered. Taking this as a sign, the people of Israel launched one final, desperate charge. Against all odds, they emerged victorious, driving the oppressors from their land. With peace restored, Miriam returned to Bethulia, where she was hailed as the new guardian of Judith's legacy. But like her ancestor, she did not seek power or glory. Instead, she dedicated her life to ensuring that the story of Judith, and the lessons of faith, courage, and unity, would never be forgotten. Thus, the legend of Judith lived on, not just in history, but in the hearts of those who chose to follow her path. And as long as there were those willing to stand for what was right, her story would never truly end. If you love this channel, please like and share and subscribe. Thank you. A new threat arises. Years passed, and under Miriam's leadership, Bethulia thrived. The people, united in faith and purpose, rebuilt their city and strengthened their defenses. But peace, as always, was fleeting. Far beyond their borders, a ruthless warlord named Zephyr rose to power, leading an army of mercenaries who pillaged and burned every land they encountered. His forces, hardened by countless battles, had never known defeat. Word spread quickly. Zephyr had set his sights on Bethulia. Miriam, now older and wise beyond her years, knew that another battle was upon them. But this enemy was unlike any before. Zephyr's strength was not just in numbers but in his ability to sow discord among his enemies. He sent spies into Bethulia, whispering lies and planting seeds of doubt among the people. Some began to question Miriam's leadership, wondering if she had the strength to stand against such a foe. But Miriam did not waver. She gathered her most trusted advisors, including Caleb, a skilled warrior, and Naomi, a brilliant strategist. Together, they devised a plan to outmaneuver Zephyr's forces. Miriam knew that brute force alone would not be enough. They had to strike at the heart of Zephyr's power. As Zephyr's army approached, Miriam led a small group on a secret mission deep into enemy territory. Disguised as travelers, they infiltrated Zephyr's stronghold, seeking to uncover the source of his strength. What they found was far more dangerous than they had imagined. A dark alliance between Zephyr and a secret cult that worshipped chaos and destruction. Miriam knew that defeating Zephyr was not just about winning a battle. It was about breaking his influence over his followers. Using her knowledge of ancient texts, she discovered a way to weaken the cult's hold over him. In the dead of night, she and her allies set their plan into motion. They spread word among Zephyr's soldiers that their leader was cursed, that his victories were not his own, but the work of dark forces that would soon turn against him. Fear took hold, and doubt spread like wildfire. When Miriam and her people finally launched their attack, Zephyr's army was already crumbling from within. In the final battle, Miriam faced Zephyr himself. He was a towering figure, armed with a blade that had seen countless battles. But Miriam did not falter. With swift precision, she struck him down, ending his reign of terror once and for all. With Zephyr defeated, his army scattered, and the land was free once more. Miriam returned to Bethulia, knowing that though the battle had been won, the fight for justice and faith would never truly end. She passed her teachings down to the next generation, ensuring that the spirit of Judith would live on in all who chose to walk her path. And so the legend continued, carried forth by those who refused to bow to darkness, who stood against oppression, and who believed in the power of unity and faith. The legacy endures. The legend continued, carried forth by those who refused to bow to darkness, who stood against oppression, and who believed in the power of unity and faith. But with each new age came new challenges, and the strength of the people would be tested once more. Generations after Miriam's triumph, a new threat emerged from the eastern mountains. A ruthless empire, led by a warlord known as Darius the Conqueror, sought to expand its dominion across the lands. Cities fell before his might, and his armies, vast and unrelenting, left destruction in their wake. Bethulia, though strong, now stood as one of the last free cities resisting his rule. Among the defenders was a young warrior named Asher, a direct descendant of Miriam and Judith. Trained in both the wisdom of his ancestors and the art of war, he carried the weight of their legacy upon his shoulders. But Asher was different. Where Judith and Miriam had relied on strategy and faith, he had spent his life preparing for battle, mastering the sword and shield. He was determined to meet force with force, to push back the invaders not with words, but with steel. However, the teachings of his ancestors whispered in his heart. Victory was not won by might alone but by the strength of spirit and unity. And so, instead of charging recklessly into battle, Asher sought allies. He traveled to distant lands, gathering warriors and scholars, priests and outcasts, any who would stand against tyranny. Under his leadership, a new coalition was formed, one that carried not only weapons but the unshakable belief in freedom. When Darius's forces arrived at the gates of Bethulia, they found not a city weakened by fear, but one fortified by hope. The battle raged for days, steel clashing against steel, the cries of war filling the skies. Asher, like Judith before him, led his people into the fray, wielding not just his sword but the courage of those who had come before him. In the end, it was not brute strength that won the war, but the unity of those who stood together. Darius, seeing his once invincible army falter against a force fueled by faith and purpose, withdrew. His empire, built on fear, crumbled in the face of unyielding resistance. With Bethulia safe once more, Asher stood before his people, knowing that though the war had ended, the battle for justice and faith would never truly be over. He vowed to pass down the teachings of Judith and Miriam, ensuring that future generations would always remember their strength, their wisdom, and their unwavering belief in what was right. And so, the story of Judith lived on, not just in scrolls and songs, but in the very blood of those who carried her spirit. For as long as there were those willing to fight for truth and unity, her legacy would never fade.